now releasing all goblins.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game has Kuzno, Bryce, and Eric rejoining us, with Bryce playing Tatyova, Benthic Druid. His opener has Dizzy Spell, Brainstorm, Tidal Bore, 3 snow-covered islands, and a forest. Eric is playing Dee Kay, Finder of the Lost, and he keeps 2 islands, Underground River, Bucknard's Everfull Purse, Vexing Puzzle Box, Midgame, Console of Innovation, and Dance Macabre. I am playing my slightly shifted Tymna and Vile Smasher deck that is now a Dihada, Binder of Wills. I keep Arid Mesa, Night's Whisper, Mountain, Shizo Death Storehouse, Cathartic Reunion, Godless Shrine, and an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Last but not least, Kuzno is playing his Jodah deck, teaming it up with Jengatha, meeting the requirements, and keeps a Bloodstained Mire, Bayou, Rhythm the Wilds, Mox Amber, Urza's Ruinous Blast, Terminate, and Prime Speaker Vanifar. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play a tapped Godless Shrine. Kuzno draws, playing a Bloodstained Mire. Bryce has a snow-covered island and passes to Eric. Eric plays Evolving Wilds and sacrifices it to go and find a swamp, passing while searching. I draw, and then play a mountain. I pay 2 mana for a Night's Whisper to draw 2 and lose 2. And then move to my discard phase, discarding Shizo and passing. Kuzno plays a Bayou for turn, and then casts Mox Amber. He passes, and during his end step, Bryce casts a Brainstorm to draw 3 and put 2 back. Bryce plays a Forest, and then casts Into the North, going to find a snow-covered forest, plus gets to shuffle away the 2 cards he put back on top with Brainstorm. He passes after that. Eric plays an island, and plays out a Bucknard's Everfull Purse. I draw and play Urborg, and then tap a land for a Soul Ring. I followed that up with a Thematic Compass, passing to Kuzno. Kuzno draws, but sadly is whiffing on his 3rd land. With nothing to do and nothing to play, he has to pass turn. Bryce plays a snow-covered island, and then plays a Llanowar Scout, passing once it resolves. Eric has a Seed of Sign-On for his land for turn, and he plays out a Vexing Puzzle Box. He then plays out a Bamboozling Beeble and passes turn. I've got enough for Dihada in my main phase, and down ticker to reveal Burgi and 3 other cards that I put to the graveyard, which makes me 3 treasure tokens. I then play out an Arid Mesa, and pass, sacrificing it during my end step to go and find a land and save my opponent some time. Kuzno draws and finally finds a land, but it's a tapped Zatora's Proving Ground. He's still stuck with 2 mana, and has to pass after that. Bryce plays an island, and now has enough for Tatyova. He then activates the Scout once his commander is out, to put a snow-covered forest into play, gaining a life and drawing a card. He then plays the now banned in Legacy Arkham's Astrolabe, drawing another card and passing after that. Eric has a Sunken Hollow for turn, and just plays Padim and passes to me. I draw and play a Clifftop Retreat, and then cast the Burgi that I revealed earlier. I then uptick Dihada to give Burgi a pile of keywords, and cast a Cathartic Reunion, pitching some lands and then drawing 3. I then cast an Orzhov Signet, and Kuzno responds, casting a Terminate and targets Tatyova. With Bryce's commander removed, Kuzno is finished, and I pass after that. Kuzno draws and plays Rocco, putting 0 into the X. Surprisingly, he's able to find something, going to grab a Rogue Rack, a 0 drop, and puts it to the field and passes after that. Bryce plays an Explorer in his main phase, drawing another card. He then plays a Halimar Depths, rearranging his top 3. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a second land for turn, and has to pass after that. On his end step, Eric activates Bucknard's Everfull Purse, rolling a disappointing 1, gaining 1 treasure, and passes it to Bryce before moving to his turn. Eric draws a card from the Padim trigger and then draws for turn. He plays out an Underground River, and then plays Dee Kay, which nets him an information booth as an attraction. He passes after that. I draw and play a Smoldering Marsh. I then uptick Dihada again on Bergie, and go to combat, hitting Kuzno for 3 with her and gaining some life. With nothing else, I hold my mana up and pass. Kuzno draws and plays out Prime Speaker Vannifar. Without another land though, he has to pass, and during his end step, Bryce casts Impulse, getting some card selection. Once that resolves, he bounces 2 islands back to his hand to cast Gush, and draws some cards. He then activates the Scout after that's done, and puts an island back into play. On Bryce's upkeep, Eric activates the Bamboozling Beeble on Bryce, so that he can fiddle with the dice rolls from the Bucknard's Everfull Purse. And Bryce then draws for turn. In his main phase, he casts High Tide, and then plays an island. He recasts Tatyova, and then plays a Sakura Tribe Scout. He then plays a Tidal Bore, and bounces an island back to hand to untap the Llanowar Scout. Bryce then activates the Scout to put another island into play, and this triggers Tatyova, gaining him a life and drawing him a card. He then casts a Farseek, finding another island, and drawing a card and gaining 1 life. With a mana floating, he then activates the Purse and rolls a 1 and a 2, and Eric kindly chooses the 2 for him. Bryce then passes the Purse over to Kuzno, and then uses the 2 treasures to help cast Merchant Scroll, and he goes into his library to find Capsize. Eric draws from the Padim and then for turn. He then Beebles himself in his draw step before his attraction goes off. He gets to roll 2 dice because the Beeble, and we're pretty sure that he gets to keep both of the dice on the puzzle box, although we're not sure because, you know, these are weird cards, and draws a card from the information booth after keeping the 6. He then plays an island and casts Pixie Guide, and then a component pouch. He taps the pouch to roll a d20 with advantage thanks to the Pixie Guide, and he hits an 18 and adds more dice to the puzzle box. After that, he passes, and during his end step, I activate the Thematic Compass to find a Plains. I draw and play a Plains. I downtick Dihada, unfortunately hitting no legendaries, but getting to make 4 treasure tokens. I then cast a Demonic Tutor, and go and find a card for hand. I then play out Shreds of Sanity, getting back Demonic Tutor and Rakdos Charm, and discarding Akaya's Guile, and then exiling the Shreds. After that, I pass turn, and the Thematic Compass transforms. Kuzno draws and pods away his Rocco with Vannifar for a Safina. He then activates the Purse, rolling a d4 and hitting a 1 to get 1 treasure, and then passes it to me. Once that's done, he casts Sisay, Weatherlight Captain, and passes after that. Bryce draws, and before leaving the step, Eric activates his puzzle box to roll some dice and add more counters to it. Bryce then casts a Deep Analysis in his main phase, drawing 2, and simply passes after that. Eric draws for Padim and then for turn. He rolls a 6 for his attractions and draws another card and adds more dice to the Vexing puzzle box. He plays a Swamp for turn and then goes to put out Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, with Bryce responding by casting Into the Royal and targeting the puzzle box. Tezzeret then resolves, and Eric plays out a Vidalcan Squirrel Whacker, rolling a 2 and a 4 and making it a 2-4. He then replays the puzzle box and casts a Cyber Ride Awakener, turning his information booth into a 4-4 flyer. Going to combat, he kills Dihada with the information booth. In his second main phase, he then activates Tezzeret and drains each of his opponents for 8. After all that's done, he passes to me. I draw and cast Yawgmoth's Will, which allows me to cast Rains and Riches from my graveyard, making 2 treasure tokens as it comes in. I then activate the purse and roll a 4, making 4 treasure tokens. I follow up with a Blasphemous Act, using a treasure token to get a Cascade, but sadly cascade into a fork. I choose not to cast it and instead bottom it. Bryce responds by activating the Scout to put a Forest into play, and draws a card and gains a life, and the Blasphemous Act then resolves, and all the creatures get wiped. I then recast Night's Whisper to draw 2 and lose 2, and then cast a Rakdos Signet as well, and then recast the Cathartic Reunion, exiling it after it resolves. I follow it up with a Gilded Lotus, which I then tap to cast Read the Bones, keeping 1 on top, bottoming 1, then drawing 2 and losing 2. With all that done, I have to move to discard and pass. Kuzno draws and casts a Rhythm of the Wilds, but still stuck on mana, has to pass after that. Bryce draws and taps out again to cast Tatyova. He then plays an island, gaining 1 and drawing 1, and plays a Relic of Progenitus, passing after that. Eric draws and rolls for his information booth, drawing a card. He then replays Dee Kay thanks to Tezzeret's affinity, which has him opening another attraction, and this time it's Haunted House. And then plays a quick fixer. Eric follows that up with a Dance Macabre. This has each opponent sacrificing a creature and adding their toughness to a d20 roll, and even with all that added together, Eric still only hits the 1 to 14, and brings back Dee Kay, opening another attraction as his commander re-enters the battlefield. This time around he reveals a Clown Extruder, which I don't want anything to do with. Eric then activates Bucknards, rolling a 3 for 3 treasures, and once that's done, upticks Tezzeret, this time draining his opponents for 11 and gaining 33. After that, he passes turn. I draw and play a Sulphurous Springs. I then play out a Demonic Tutor, going to find a card, and once that's done, cast Storm King's Thunder, putting 4 into the X. With that done, I live the dream of casting Bonus Round and getting 4 copies of Bonus Round. With all those copies done, I put to stack a Mana Geyser and get several copies of it, which nets me a total of 80 red mana. I then follow up with a Past in Flames, and then cast a Storm King's Thunder where X is 22, and followed that up with a Bonus Round for even more copy shenanigans. Once all that's done, I still have enough mana to cast Demonic Tutor, and basically get to copy it enough times to put my entire library into my hand. With access to my library, I'm then able to tutor enough mana rocks to turn my red mana into other colors, and funnel the rest of it into a Torment of Hailfire, which the table knows they're done for, and scoop it up. Game review time. So I know one win isn't a great sample group, but I'm actually really enjoying the change-up of Dihada from Tymna and Vile Smasher. It's not to say that those two partners aren't good commanders, I just don't know if they were good for Mardu Spellslingers. Dihada digs me deeper into my library, which helps me use stuff like Underworld Breach, Yawgmoth's Will, and Past in Flames more effectively, not to mention hits me lands to put to my hand, and if I hit nothing, at the very least gets me 4 treasures. And I can also use her uptick to protect valuable combo pieces, like Burgi, who allows me to generate lots of mana when I'm casting my spells. The deck definitely needs more testing, and I probably could use more spells that have flashback in them, but I'm really happy with the direction this is taking. Eric's Dee Kay deck was probably the least egregious attractions deck that I've seen so far. He didn't get a ton of them, although he did roll a lot of dice and that can be a lot to track. We're still not entirely sure how the Pixie and Vexing work, whether or not you get both die rolls added to the Vexing or not, so hopefully someone in the comments can say whether or not that's legal. Unfortunately, Kuzno got really far behind in lands, and I think that was actually our saving grace because he was playing Jodah Legendaries, which basically just cascades into legendary good creatures and he bashes face. If you've seen my Jodah backgrounds deck, you know that this can get out of hand very quickly, so that's probably what kept us alive for as long as we did, until that blasphemous act that I got wiped away his board. Bryce's Tatyova deck seemed pretty much like a stock list. It had lots of lands, lots of ways to play extra lands, and lots of ways to benefit from lands. I wouldn't be surprised with some kind of landfall payoff as a win condition, and using Rampaging Baloth to fill the board with beasts. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.